In the same way that you've had a friend share his day with you and all the important things that happened to him, but not in the order that they happened, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John tell about the last week of Jesus' life. And they tell it about what's important that God is telling him to say, and not necessarily everything in chronological order. It's hard to put together sometimes, although we believe we know what happened. Yesterday was Sunday when Jesus rode the triumphant entry into Jerusalem. And after that, he walked into the temple and looked around and saw everything. And then, because it was late in the day, he went back to Bethany with his disciples where they were staying. And today is Monday. Monday, day Jesus has come now back to Jerusalem. And on the way, he saw a tree that had leaves on it, a fig tree. And when he got up close to it because he was hungry, he didn't see any figs because it was not the season of figs. And he cursed the tree that it would never again bear fruit. Now we keep in mind that figs bear twice. The new growth, which is later on in the year, that are sweet and good figs. But there is a first bearing of old off the old wood. And they're inferior figs, starchy and small, and oftentimes they wouldn't get used except for perhaps the poor or someone who was really hungry, because they are edible. Well, the Son of God was looking for some fruit, and the fig tree had the promise of fruit, of the leaves, but no fruit. And that's like Israel. They had all the rain and the soil and everything like a fig tree that God brought to it. It had Moses and the law, it had Abraham of faith, it had David with a great heart, and yet still they bore no fruit, no desire for God through Jesus. Now, after Jesus left that place, he walked into the temple. And maybe this explains why we see the temple the way that it is. Because if they're bearing no fruit, then all they're doing is going through the motions and doing religious stuff. And Jesus stopped it all. He turned over the tables, threw out the money changers, stopped anybody from walking across the temple with wares in their hands. And he said, "You have made a den of thieves out of the house of the Father who wants a house of prayer for all nations." And so we see that what Jesus was wanting is fruit, but he's also wanting relationship, a house of prayer with the Father. And you can't have one without the other. You can't have a person who says, "Well, I know God and I love God," but then there's no fruit out of his life. He's not serving Jesus. He's not doing the work of Jesus, going about fishing for men, taking them and baptizing them and bring them into a church body so there's fellowship and belonging, and then also turning around and teaching them everything about how they can obey. A person who says he loves God, but he doesn't bear any fruit. He's not working the works that Jesus came to work. But likewise, we can't just do a bunch of religious works without the relationship and the prayer, because otherwise it's just going through the motions. So learn a lesson from the last week of Jesus' life. Today is Monday. Today he cursed those fig tree that bore no fruit. He wants fruit. Today he threw out the money changers and overturned everything in the temple, because he wants not just going through the motions, but he wants our heart and our relationship in prayer. This is Monday. And after that, Jesus went back, he and his disciples, left Jerusalem and went back to Bethany, where they were staying.